It was almost midnight when Jake Carson, a tired single dad with circles under his eyes, saw his boss stumble through the door of the dusty roadside bar. He wasn't supposed to be there. He only stopped in for a quick soda after a long double shift. But when he saw his boss, Ms. Davenport, the woman everyone feared at work, leaning against the wall with tears in her eyes, something inside him shifted. He couldn't walk away. Not tonight. He didn't know it yet, but the act of kindness he was about to give, a kindness no one would have expected, would change everything in his life. By the next afternoon, he discovered that protecting her in that bar would rewrite his future in ways he never dared to imagine. Before we dive in, if you love powerful true-to-life stories about humanity, kindness, and second chances, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. It really helps our channel Truthlines USA reach more people who need a little inspiration in their day. Now, let's begin the story. Jake wasn't the kind of man who liked bars, or noise, or crowds. His life was simple: wake up early, pack his daughter Lily's lunch, drop her off at school, work 10 hours at the auto parts warehouse, pick her up, help her with homework, and collapse into bed. That night, after covering 2 extra shifts because someone called out, he needed 10 quiet minutes before heading home. Just 10. He had barely taken 2 sips of his soda when the door opened and cold air rushed in. Jake glanced up, then did a double take. Ms. Miranda Davenport, the regional manager who never smiled, never joked, and seemed to live only for spreadsheets and rules, was swaying inside the doorway. She was still in her business clothes, though the blazer was missing, and her usually perfect hair was falling out of its pins. She looked lost, like someone who had been running from something and didn't know where she had ended up. Jake froze. Everyone at the company feared her. She'd fired people for being late twice. She'd once written up a guy for chewing gum during a staff meeting. She didn't even know Jake's name, she always just called him warehouse guy. But tonight, she wasn't that stern manager. She was just a woman whose face was blotchy from crying. She slumped onto a bar stool 2 seats away from him and ordered something strong. The bartender hesitated, clearly recognizing that she was already drunk, but she insisted. Her voice cracked as she tried to speak, and for the first time since Jake had known her existence, she looked painfully human. He tried not to stare. He didn't want to embarrass her. But when she nearly slipped off the stool reaching for a drink, Jake instinctively reached over and caught her arm. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked softly. She blinked at him, confused. You work at my company," she slurred. "Yes, ma'am." "What are you doing here?" she asked, sounding defensive. "Just waiting out a long day," he said, offering a small smile. "But I think you've had a longer one." She didn't answer. Instead, tears welled up again, spilling over before she could stop them. The people around the bar turned to watch, some snickering, some whispering. Jake felt something twist in his chest. He knew what it was like to feel looked at, judged, cornered by life. He knew how humiliating it felt when the world saw your weakest moments. "Let's get you out of here," he said gently. "Before someone records you and puts it online." That seemed to break through her fog. Her eyes widened with fear. "No. No cameras. Please. My job." "I won't let anything happen," Jake promised. It wasn't his job. It wasn't his responsibility. But kindness has a way of showing up in the people who have the least to spare. He helped her stand, wrapped her coat around her shoulders, and guided her outside where the air was cold and quiet. She leaned on him, mumbling apologies and half-formed sentences about losing someone. Jake didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He simply walked with her, step by step, to a rideshare car he ordered on his phone. Before he helped her inside, she looked at him with exhausted, glassy eyes. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because someone should," he answered. He made sure the driver safely took her to her address, an expensive neighborhood he'd never even driven through, then headed home, his soda still half-finished, his shirt smelling like her perfume. By the next morning, Jake almost convinced himself that last night had been a strange dream. He didn't expect gratitude. He didn't expect anything. People like Ms. Davenport didn't notice people like him. But he was wrong. The next afternoon, just as he was rearranging boxes in aisle 4, the warehouse went unusually silent. Footsteps echoed behind him, heels tapping on concrete. Someone cleared their throat. He turned around. Ms. Davenport. Not the disheveled, heartbroken version from the night before, but the professional, composed, intimidating version employee manuals warned you about. Yet something was different. Her eyes were softer. Her expression unsure. "Jake Carson," she asked. He nodded, slightly nervous. She had never said his name before. "Can I speak to you in my office?" Jake's stomach dropped. People only went to her office for one reason, and it wasn't good. But he followed her across the building, feeling every pair of eyes tracking them. Once inside, she closed the door gently and turned toward him. "I want to thank you," she said quietly. "For last night." Jake shrugged. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Her voice trembled slightly. "People don't usually help me. And they certainly don't protect me when I'm making a fool of myself." He didn't know what to say. She took a deep breath and walked around her desk. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I've been difficult. Cold. Detached. I know I create a lot of fear around here." She paused. "My husband died 8 months ago. I didn't know how to function without him. So I buried myself in work. I put walls up. Too many walls." Jake swallowed. Pain recognized pain. "I'm sorry," he said. She gave a small nod. "Last night was the first time anyone has seen me break." Another breath. "And you didn't take advantage of that. You protected me. You cared." Jake looked down at his shoes, uncomfortable with praise he didn't feel he deserved. "It was the right thing to do. That's exactly why I need people like you in leadership," she said suddenly. He blinked. "Leadership." She opened a folder on her desk and slid a sheet toward him. "I looked at your file this morning. You've worked here 7 years. You have perfect attendance. Every supervisor who's ever trained you praised your work ethic. And yet," she paused, frowning at the paper, "you've never been promoted." Jake sighed. "Life's complicated. Being a single dad, sometimes I miss chances other people take." "Well," she said, pushing the paper closer, "I'd like to change that. If you're willing, I'd like to promote you to warehouse shift lead. Better pay. Better hours. And more flexibility so you can be with your daughter." He stared at her, stunned. "Ma'am, are you serious?" "Yes, Jake. I'm serious." Emotion rose in his chest, tight and overwhelming. He thought of Lily, sweet, bright-eyed Lily, whose shoes always seemed too small, whose field trips he could never chaperone, whose Christmas gifts he stretched himself thin to afford. "You don't owe me anything," he whispered. She shook her head. "This isn't about owing. It's about recognizing the kind of person who makes this company better. You showed kindness when no one would have blamed you for walking away. You lifted someone you had no reason to help." Her voice softened. "Kindness like that deserves to be lifted, too." Jake didn't trust himself to speak. He nodded, swallowed hard, and blinked away tears he didn't want her to see. The promotion changed more than his paycheck. It changed his life. He got to walk Lily to school. He had evenings free to make dinner that didn't come from a microwave. He had weekends where he wasn't collapsing from exhaustion. And for the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was living. As for Ms. Davenport, something changed in her, too. The walls she built began to crumble. She greeted people by name. She listened more. She smiled, awkwardly at first, then more freely. She became human again. Months passed, and one afternoon, as Jake was finishing paperwork in his small but tidy new office, she stopped by. "How's the new schedule working out?" she asked. Jake smiled. "Lily says I make the best pancakes now." She laughed softly. "I'm glad." They stood there for a moment, quiet but comfortable. "Funny, isn't it?" she said. "How one small act of kindness can change everything." Jake nodded. "Funny and true. You reminded me," she said, "that people are good. That kindness matters. Even when life has broken you a little." Jake looked at her with the same gentle steadiness he'd offered that night at the bar. We're all broken a little.